When my daughter Melissa stood on what she thought was her front porch, screaming at me to get out of her house while my suitcases landed in the driveway one by one, I remember thinking how strange it is that you can spend 28 years raising someone and still not truly know them. I watched her face, red with rage, twisted with entitlement, and felt something inside me go completely still. She had no idea that in less than 3 hours, that same porch would be the stage for the most humiliating moment of her life. She had no idea that every word she was screaming, every insult she was hurling, was sealing her fate. And she certainly had no idea that I had known exactly what she was planning for the past 6 weeks. Let me take you back to where this all started, because like most family betrayals, this one didn't happen overnight. It was built brick by brick, lie by lie, assumption by assumption. My name is Emily. I am 62 years old, and this is the story of how my only daughter tried to steal everything from me, and how she learned that underestimating your mother is the biggest mistake you can ever make. For most of my adult life, I believed I was doing everything right. I married young, 23, to a man named Robert who worked in insurance. We had Melissa when I was 24, and from the moment she was born, she became the center of my universe. Robert traveled frequently for work, sometimes for weeks at a time, so it was mostly me and Melissa in that little house on Maple Street. I worked part-time as a bookkeeper, but my real job was being her mother. I was the mother who made elaborate Halloween costumes by hand. I was the mother who drove 45 minutes each way to the Better Dance School because Melissa showed promise. I was the mother who saved for 2 years to send her to that summer program in New York when she was 16, even though it meant I didn't replace my 10-year-old car. When she wanted to go to Hartwell University, an expensive private school, Robert and I took out loans. When she graduated and wanted to move to the city to find herself, I sent her money every month for a year until she got on her feet. I'm not saying this to make myself sound like a saint. I'm saying it because it's the truth, and because every mother listening to this will understand. You do these things not because you expect something in return, but because you love your child, because you want them to have more, be more, do more than you did. Melissa got married when she was 26 to a man named Derek. He worked in tech sales, made good money, wore expensive watches, and had a smile that never quite reached his eyes. I'll be honest, I didn't love him. There was something about the way he talked about people, always calculating what they could do for him. But Melissa was radiant at the wedding, and I told myself I was being an overprotective mother. I smiled in all the photos and wrote them a check for $10,000 as a wedding gift, money I'd inherited from my own mother. Looking back now, I should have noticed the shift that happened after the wedding. Melissa's phone calls became less frequent. When I did hear from her, the conversations felt performative, like she was checking a box. "Hi, Mom. Yes, everything's fine. Work is busy. Derek is great. I'll call you soon." Then weeks would pass. When I'd call her, she'd sound irritated, distracted. "Mom, I'm in the middle of something. Can this wait?" Robert passed away suddenly 2 years ago, a heart attack at 63. He went to bed one night and simply didn't wake up. Melissa came to the funeral, stayed for 2 days, and left immediately after the burial. She said she had an important work presentation. She hugged me at the airport and said, "You'll be okay, Mom. You're strong." Then she was gone. The grief was enormous, not just for Robert, but for the life we'd built together. Our house, the one we'd lived in for 35 years, felt cavernous and strange. Every room held memories that now felt like ghosts. I couldn't sleep in our bedroom anymore. I'd lie awake at night listening to the house settle, feeling crushingly alone. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September when Melissa called. I remember because I'd been sorting through Robert's clothes, trying to decide what to donate. I'd been putting it off for months, but the weather was turning cold and I knew someone could use his winter coats. "Mom?" Her voice on the phone sounded warm, almost concerned. "How are you doing?" "I'm managing," I said, sitting down on the edge of the bed. "I'm finally going through your father's things." "That must be hard." There was a pause. Mom, I've been worried about you. You're all alone in that big house. Have you thought about what you're going to do? Do? I said. What do you mean? I mean long term. You're 62. That house is too much for you to maintain. And with Dad gone, can you even afford to keep it? I felt my shoulders tense. The house is paid off, Melissa, and I have your father's life insurance and my retirement savings. I'm financially stable. But for how long? She pressed. Mom, I'm saying this because I love you. You need to think practically. What if something happens to you? What if the house needs major repairs? What if your health fails? I felt a flutter of anxiety in my chest. These were thoughts that had kept me awake at night, though I'd never voiced them. I suppose I'll handle things as they come, I said carefully. Or, Melissa said, and her voice shifted to something brighter, almost excited, you could come live with me and Derek. I was so surprised I actually laughed. What? I'm serious, Mom. We have that big house now. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. There's plenty of space. You could have your own room, your own bathroom. We'd take care of you. My heart swelled. This was the Melissa I remembered, my thoughtful, caring daughter. Sweetheart, that's incredibly generous, but I couldn't impose like that. It's not imposing. Mom, think about it. You'd have family around. You wouldn't be lonely. And you could help us out too. Maybe do some cooking, help around the house. It would be good for everyone. Help around the house, I repeated slowly. Well, I mean, if you wanted to. I just meant we'd all be together, like a real family again. She paused. And, Mom, this would really help Derek and me too. We're trying to save for the future, maybe start a family soon. If you sold your house and moved in with us, you could contribute to expenses and we could all benefit. Your money would go further. You'd be taken care of. There it was, the thing that should have made alarm bells ring. But I was so starved for connection, so desperate not to be alone, that I heard what I wanted to hear instead of what she was actually saying. Let me think about it, I said. Of course, no pressure, Mom. I just want what's best for you. We talked for another 20 minutes, the longest conversation we'd had in months. When I hung up, I felt warm, hopeful. My daughter wanted me close. She cared. Over the next 2 weeks, Melissa called every few days. Each conversation followed the same pattern: concern about my well-being, gentle pressure about the house being too much, enthusiastic descriptions of how wonderful it would be to live together. She sent me photos of the guest room that would be mine. She texted me recipes we could cook together. She even had Derek call to add his encouragement. Emily, we'd love to have you, Derek said in that smooth voice of his. Honestly, it would be great for her to have her mom around. She gets lonely when I travel for work. I felt myself softening, yielding. Maybe this was the answer. Maybe this was how I'd survive the grief and the loneliness. It was a Thursday evening, exactly 3 weeks after that first phone call, when I said yes. Melissa squealed with delight. Mom, this is going to be amazing. Okay, so here's what we'll do. You start getting your house ready to sell. I'll help you find a good realtor. And in the meantime, why don't you come stay with us for a few weeks, like a trial run? You can see how much you love it here, and we can start figuring out how to move your things. A trial run sounds sensible. Perfect. Can you come next weekend? That gives you time to pack a bag and get things organized. I felt a flutter of nervousness, but pushed it aside. Next weekend, I agreed. That Saturday morning, I loaded 2 large suitcases into my car, one with clothes, one with personal items and photos. I locked up the house, feeling strange and untethered. I'd never been away from this house for more than a week or 2 at a time. Now I was leaving with no return date. The drive to Melissa and Derek's house took 90 minutes. They lived in an upscale development called Riverside Estates. All new construction, perfectly manicured lawns, 3-car garages. Their house was beautiful: gray siding, white trim, a front porch with expensive wicker furniture. Melissa greeted me at the door with a hug that felt a slightly too brief. Mom, you made it. Come in, come in. The inside of the house was magazine perfect. Hardwood floors, granite countertops, furniture that looked expensive and uncomfortable. Everything was beige and gray and white, sophisticated but cold. "Let me show you your room," Melissa said, leading me up the stairs. The guest room was nice enough, queen bed, dresser, small bathroom attached, but it felt impersonal, like a hotel room. There were no photos on the walls, no personal touches. "This is lovely," I said, setting my suitcases down. "I'm glad you like it," Melissa said. "Okay, so I need to run out for a few hours. I have a hair appointment and some errands. Derek's at the gym. Make yourself at home. There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry." Then she was gone, and I was alone in this strange, perfect house. The first week was unsettling, but not alarming. I barely saw Melissa or Derek. They both worked long hours, or at least said they did. Melissa would leave before 8 in the morning and not return until 7 or 8 at night. Derek was gone even more, claiming client meetings and work dinners. When they were home, they were polite but distant. We'd eat dinner together, usually something I'd cooked since there was never food prepared, and they'd talk to each other about people I didn't know and things I didn't understand. I felt like a ghost in their home, present but not really seen. I spent my days cleaning their house, not because they asked, but because I needed something to do. I vacuumed, did laundry, organized their pantry, scrubbed their bathrooms. When Melissa came home to a spotless kitchen, she'd say, "Oh, Mom, you didn't have to do that." But her smile was pleased, satisfied. On Friday of that first week, Melissa sat down with me at the kitchen table. "So, Mom, have you contacted any realtors yet about your house?" "I've been thinking about it, but I haven't made any calls yet." Her smile tightened. "Well, you should probably get on that. The market's good right now. You don't want to miss the window." "I suppose you're right," I said slowly, "though I'm still adjusting to being here. Maybe I should wait a few more weeks before I make such a big decision." Something flickered across her face. Annoyance, maybe anger, but it was gone so quickly I thought I'd imagined it. "Sure, Mom, whatever you think is best." But the next morning, I found real estate brochures on the kitchen counter, and on Sunday, Melissa brought up the house again. "You know, Mom, I was thinking, if you're serious about selling, I could help you. I could even come to your house next week and start helping you pack up things, get the process moving." "That's very sweet, but I'm not sure I'm ready yet." "Mom," her voice had an edge now, "you said you wanted to do this. You said you wanted to live here, but you have to actually commit to it. You can't just keep stringing us along." "Stringing you along," I repeated, feeling stung. "I didn't mean it like that," she said quickly. "I just meant Derek and I are planning our future with you in mind. We're counting on your contribution to make this work. We need to know you're serious." There it was again. Contribution. Your contribution. I felt cold suddenly, but I pushed the feeling away. The second week was worse. Melissa stopped being polite about her expectations. On Monday evening, she came home to find me reading in the living room. "Did you do laundry today?" she asked. "I did a load of my own things." "Oh," she frowned. "Well, Derek and I are both out of clean work clothes. Could you do a few loads tomorrow?" "Of course," I said. Tuesday, it was dishes. Wednesday, it was grocery shopping, with a list Melissa had written that cost over $300. "Just use your card, Mom. We'll settle up later." Thursday, she asked me to pick up Derek's dry cleaning. Friday, she wondered if I could start making dinner every night, since you're here anyway. I felt myself shrinking, becoming smaller and smaller in that house. But I told myself this was normal. Families help each other. This was just adjustment. It was Saturday morning of the second week when everything changed. I came downstairs to find Melissa and Derek at the kitchen table. They looked up when I entered, and something passed between them, a look I couldn't quite read. "Mom, sit down," Melissa said. "We need to talk." I sat, my heart beginning to pound. "Derek and I have been talking," Melissa said, "and we think it's time to move forward with your house sale. In fact, we'd like to help you, speed things up." "That's kind of you," I said carefully, "but—" "We've already contacted a realtor," Derek interrupted. "Great guy, highly recommended. He's ready to do a walkthrough next week." I felt my breath catch. "You contacted a realtor about my house without asking me?"
"We're just trying to help, Mom," but her voice was sharp. "You've been here 2 weeks, and you haven't done anything. We're starting to wonder if you're actually committed to this or if you're just using us for free housing."
Using you? I felt like I'd been slapped. Melissa, I've cleaned your entire house, cooked every meal, run your errands, which is the least you could do, she snapped. You're living here rent free, Mom. You're not exactly pulling your weight. I stared at her, this woman who looked like my daughter but felt like a stranger. I thought this was about family, about being together. Derek laughed, actually laughed. Emily, come on. You're a grown woman. You understand how the world works. Melissa and I are in our prime earning years. We have a lifestyle to maintain. Having you here makes sense if you contribute financially. Otherwise, he shrugged, otherwise it's just a burden. The word hung in the air. Burden? I think I should go home, I said quietly. Fine, Melissa said. But if you leave now, don't expect to come crawling back when you're lonely and falling apart. This is your chance, Mom. Sell the house, pool the money with us, and we'll all benefit. Or go back to that empty house and spend the rest of your life alone. Your choice. I stood up, my legs shaking. I need to think. I went to my room and sat on the edge of the bed, my mind reeling. I'd raised this woman. I'd given her everything. How had we gotten here? That's when I noticed my purse was open on the dresser. I always kept it zipped. Always, with trembling hands, I checked inside. My wallet. It was there, but it looked disturbed. I opened it. My credit cards were all present, but they weren't in the order I always kept them. And then I noticed one of my checkbooks was missing. The one from my primary checking account. A cold wave of dread washed over me. I went downstairs slowly, checkbook in my thoughts. Melissa and Derek were still at the kitchen table, now looking at something on Derek's laptop. Melissa. I said from the doorway, have you seen one of my checkbooks, the blue one from First National? She didn't even look up. No, Mom, why would I have your checkbook? It's missing from my purse. Now she looked up and her expression was annoyed. Are you accusing me of something? I'm just asking if you've seen it. Well, I haven't. You probably misplaced it. You're getting older, Mom, memory goes. I felt anger flare but kept my voice level. I don't misplace things, Melissa, especially not checkbooks. Derek closed his laptop. Emily, I think maybe you're feeling stressed about the big decision you need to make. That can cause confusion. Why don't you go rest, and we can all talk later when everyone's calm. He was dismissing me. In this house where I was a guest, he was dismissing me like a confused child. I went back to my room and immediately pulled out my phone. I logged into my bank account, something I did regularly to monitor my finances. Robert had always handled the bills, so after he died, I'd become meticulous about tracking every dollar. My heart sank. There were 3 checks that had cleared in the past week that I hadn't written. One for $1,500, one for $2,000, one for $1,200, all marked as household expenses. In the memo line, all made out to Riverside Estates Property Management. I checked the check numbers. They were from my missing checkbook. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. $4,700. Gone, stolen, but why would they write checks to a property management company? Unless I opened a new browser and searched Riverside Estates Property Management, and nothing came up. Then I searched Riverside Estates with Melissa's town name. What I found made my blood run cold. Riverside Estates wasn't just a development. The houses weren't individually owned. They were all rental properties managed by a company called Prestige Rentals. Every house in the neighborhood, including Melissa and Derek's, was a rental. I sat there, pieces clicking into place. The furniture that looked expensive but felt cheap, the lack of personal touches, the way Melissa had been so eager to get me to sell my house and contribute to their expenses. They didn't own this house, they rented it. And they'd been writing checks from my account to pay their rent. I felt dizzy. I needed to think, to plan, but first I needed to know more. Over the next 3 days, I became a detective in their home. When they left for work, I searched. I was methodical, careful to leave everything exactly as I'd found it. In Derek's home office, in a file labeled Personal, I found a stack of past due notices, credit cards maxed out, a car payment 3 months behind, a letter from their landlord warning about late rent, dated 2 months before I'd arrived. And tucked in the very back, a rental agreement,
They'd moved into this house 8 months ago with a 2-year lease. Monthly rent, $4,500. In Melissa's nightstand, I found a notebook. When I opened it, I felt sick. It was a plan, written in her handwriting, dated 6 months ago, right around the time Robert died. Mom's house market value approximately $580,000. Paid off, no mortgage. If we can convince her to sell and move in, we can. Use her house sale money to pay off our debts, $87,000. Cover rent for the next 2 years, $108,000. Use remainder for down payment on actual house, $385,000. Keep her here as live-in help, cooking, cleaning, etc. If she resists, make life uncomfortable until she complies or leaves. Either way, we need access to that money. Below that were notes, different scripts for how to approach me. Ways to make me feel guilty, alone, dependent. Phrases like "you're all alone now," and "what if something happens to you," underlined multiple times. I sat on their bedroom floor, that notebook in my hands, and felt something inside me turn to steel. This wasn't a betrayal born of desperation or a moment of weakness. This was premeditated, calculated. They'd been planning to steal my life savings for 6 months. They'd been manipulating me from the moment Robert died. I took photos of every page with my phone. I photographed the bills, the rental agreement, the late payment notices. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. That night at dinner, Melissa brought up the house again. "Mom, the realtor wants to do a walk through this Thursday. I told him you'd be there to let him in. Did you?" I said flatly. "Yes, it's important to get this process started. The sooner you sell, the sooner we can all move forward together." I looked at her across the table, this woman I'd carried for 9 months, whose hand I'd held on her first day of school, whose tears I'd wiped away after her first heartbreak. "And what exactly does moving forward together mean, Melissa?" She blinked, surprised by the directness. "It means being a family, Mom. Does it mean me signing over my house money to you?" The room went very quiet. Derek set down his fork. "I don't know what you're implying." Melissa said coldly, "But I don't appreciate your tone." "I'm implying," I said, still calm, still controlled, "that I'm starting to wonder about your motives." "My motives?" She laughed, but it was harsh. "My motives are to keep you from being a lonely old woman dying alone in a house that's falling apart around you. But if you want to be suspicious and paranoid, go right ahead. See how that worked out for you." The next morning, I called my bank. I explained that I'd lost a checkbook and needed to put a stop payment on any outstanding checks and close that account. The representative was kind and efficient. She helped me open a new account and transfer all my funds. I ordered new checks to be sent to my home address, not to Melissa's house. Then I called my lawyer, Martin Henderson. He'd handled Robert's estate and had known our family for years. "Emily," he said warmly when his secretary put me through. "How are you holding up?" "I need to see you," I said, "today, if possible. It's urgent." Something in my voice must have alarmed him because he immediately said, "Come at 2 o'clock. I'll make time." At 1:30, I told Melissa I was going to lunch with an old friend. She barely looked up from her phone. "Whatever, Mom." In Martin's office, I laid out everything. I showed him the photos from my phone. The notebook, the bills, the rental agreement, the canceled checks. I watched his face grow darker with each image. "Emily," he said when I finished, "this is financial elder abuse. It's a crime." "I know," I said. "But I need to handle this carefully. Melissa is still my daughter. I don't want to destroy her life. I just want to protect myself and get out of this situation." Martin leaned back in his chair. "What do you want to do?" "I want to go home, to my house. But I need to make sure that she can't access any of my accounts, my house, anything. And I need to do it in a way that makes it clear I'm not a confused old woman she can manipulate." We spent the next hour going through my finances. Martin helped me ensure everything was locked down, new passwords, 2-factor authentication, all statements going to my email only. We reviewed my will to make sure Melissa wasn't listed as power of attorney or executor. She wasn't. I'd named Martin as executor and my sister Helen as power of attorney, thank God. "The house," Martin said, "it's in your name only. Yes, Robert and I owned it jointly. but when he passed, it transferred me completely. Melissa has no claim to it. Good, keep it that way. Don't sign anything she gives you. Don't agree to put her name on any accounts or deeds. And Emily, he looked at me seriously. I think you should consider filing a police report about those forged checks. Not yet, I said. Let me get out of there first. If I need to take legal action later, I will. He nodded, though he looked unhappy. Call me if anything escalates, anything at all. I left his office feeling clearer, stronger. I had a plan now. That evening, I packed my suitcases. I did it quietly, carefully, while Melissa and Derek were both in the living room watching television. I put everything I'd brought into those 2 bags. I checked the room 3 times to make sure I hadn't left anything personal: photos, documents, jewelry. The next morning was a Saturday. At breakfast, I announced I've decided to go home. Melissa's head snapped up. What? I'm going home to my house. I appreciate you having me, but I've realized I'm not ready to sell. I need more time. You can't be serious, Derek said. We've already set everything up. You set things up without my permission. I interrupted. I never agreed to sell my house. I agreed to visit you, and I've done that. Now I'm going home. Melissa's face was turning red. So that's it? You're just going to leave, after everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me, Melissa? I asked quietly. We opened our home to you. We've been taking care of you. I've cooked every meal. I've cleaned your house top to bottom. I've run your errands. What specifically have you done for me? She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You ungrateful. We've given you a place to live. A place where I'm treated like a maid and stolen from, I said. The words hung in the air. Derek went very still. Stolen from. And Melissa's voice was dangerous. What are you talking about? My checkbook, the one that went missing, the checks made out to your landlord. I watched the color drain from her face, then come flooding back. You were snooping through our things. I was protecting myself, which turns out to have been necessary. Get out, Melissa said. Her voice was low, shaking with rage. Get out of my house. I'm planning to, I said calmly. My bags are already packed. No, she said. I mean now, right now, I want you out. I stood up. Fine. I walked to the guest room, picked up my 2 suitcases, and carried them down the stairs. Melissa and Derek were in the foyer, watching me. Melissa's face was twisted with fury. I opened the front door and began carrying my first suitcase to my car. As I came back for the second one, Melissa suddenly grabbed it. You're not taking this, she said. Melissa, let go. Those are my belongings. You come into my house, you accuse me of being a thief, and you think you can just leave. Her voice was rising, becoming shrill. After everything I've done, after I offered to take care of you, you offered to steal from me, I said. There's a difference. She yanked the suitcase toward her, and the zipper burst open. My clothes spilled across the foyer floor. Blouses, slacks, undergarments. Personal items scattered everywhere. Oops, Melissa said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. How clumsy of me. I stood there, looking at my belongings strewn across her floor, and I felt that steel inside me grow colder, harder. I'm going to get my things, I said quietly, and then I'm going to leave. And then, Melissa, you and I are done. Do you understand? We are done. Oh, we're done, she laughed. We're done when I say we're done. This is my house, and you'll leave when I say you can leave. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to slink away. I wasn't going to let her have the satisfaction of throwing me out like trash. I was going to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. I knelt down and began picking up my clothes. Melissa and Derek stood over me, Derek with his arms crossed, Melissa practically vibrating with self-righteous anger. That's right, Melissa said. Pick it all up, every piece, and then get out. I folded each item carefully, methodically. I repacked my suitcase, I stood up, and then I looked at Melissa directly and said, You know what I realized, you're right. I shouldn't leave yet, not until Thursday. She blinked, confused. What? The realtor is coming Thursday. You scheduled him, remember? I think I should be there for that, and I think I should stay here until then. Unless you want to be the daughter who threw her widowed mother out onto the street. How would that look to the neighbors? I watched her face cycle through emotions: fury, calculation, frustration. Fine, she bit out. You can stay until Thursday, but then you're gone, and you're selling that house and you're giving us what we're owed. What you're owed, I repeated. We'll see. I went to my room and closed the door. Then I pulled out my phone and made 3 calls. The first was to Martin. The situation has escalated. I need you to do something for me. I explained what I needed. He was silent for a long moment, then said, Emily, are you sure? I told him I'd never been more sure of anything in my life. The second call was to my sister Helen, who lived 3 states away. I told her everything, the whole ugly story. She was horrified, furious, and absolutely ready to help however I needed. The third call was to Prestige Rentals, the company that actually owned this house. I asked to speak to a manager. When I got one, a woman named Carol. I explained that I was staying temporarily with my daughter and son-in-law, and I'd noticed they seemed to be under significant financial stress. I was concerned, I said, about whether their rent was current. I wasn't sure if it was appropriate for me to ask, but as a worried mother. Carol was sympathetic but professional. She couldn't give me specific account information, she said. But she could tell me that the tenants at that address were currently 2 months behind on rent and had been sent a notice that if payment wasn't received within 30 days, eviction proceedings would begin. Thank you, I said. That's very helpful. After I hung up, I sat on the bed and thought. 2 months behind, plus the checks they'd forged from my account. Which meant they'd used my money to catch up slightly, but they were still drowning. They were desperate. Which made them dangerous. The next 3 days in that house were toxic. Melissa barely spoke to me except to make cutting remarks. Derek ignored me completely. I continued to cook and clean not because they wanted me to, but because it maintained my appearance of the dutiful mother, the one who couldn't possibly be planning anything. On Tuesday, Melissa came home from work and dropped a stack of papers on the kitchen table in front of me. Sign these. I looked at them. They were forms, something about setting up a joint bank account, another about listing me as a co-signer on a loan application. No, I said simply, Mom, don't be difficult. This is for all our benefits. I'm not signing anything, and I'm not selling my house. Her face hardened. Then you can get out right now. I don't care if it's before Thursday. Leave. No. I said again, I'm staying until Thursday. We had an agreement. We don't have an agreement. You have no rights here. This is my house. I looked up at her and smiled slightly. Is it? Something flickered in her eyes. Uncertainty, maybe fear. What's that supposed to mean? And nothing, I said. I'll see you Thursday. She stood there, clearly wanting to say more, to do more. But Derek called her from the other room and she stormed off. That night I heard them arguing. Their bedroom was above mine, and sound carried through the vents. She knows something, and Melissa hissed, the way she's acting she knows. She can't know anything, Derek said. She's just being a stubborn old woman. You didn't see her face. She's planning something. What could she possibly be planning? She's 62 years old. She has no power here. I smiled in the darkness. That's exactly what I wanted them to think. On Wednesday, I had one more conversation with Martin. Everything is in place, he told me, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this? I'm sure, I said. It's going to be humiliating for them. I know. Emily, they're going to hate you for this. They already do, I said. The difference is, after tomorrow, I won't care. Wednesday night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about 28 years of motherhood. The first time Melissa called me Mama, teaching her to ride a bike, staying up with her through every illness, every bad dream, every teenage heartbreak. All those years of love and sacrifice, and it had come to this, but I also thought about that notebook. About how coldly she'd planned to manipulate me. About those checks forged in my name. About the way she'd looked at me, not as her mother, but as a bank account with inconvenient emotions attached. No, I wasn't going to feel guilty. I was going to feel free. Thursday morning arrived with brilliant sunshine, the kind of perfect fall day that feels like a gift. I woke up early, showered, and dressed carefully. I wore a blue blouse Robert had always loved and a pair of simple slacks. I wanted to look dignified, put together. I wanted there to be no question that I was in complete control. Melissa and Derek were both home, which was unusual for a Thursday. They'd both taken the day off work. Why, I thought I knew. At breakfast, Derek was almost friendly. So, Emily, the realtor is coming at noon. After he looks at your house and gives you a market analysis, We can all sit down and talk about next steps. Next steps, I repeated. Getting the house listed, setting a price, planning the sale. He smiled. Getting you moved in here permanently and getting everything settled financially. You seem very confident about how this is going to go, I said. Well, you're a reasonable woman. Once you see the numbers, you'll understand this is the best decision. Melissa came into the kitchen, her phone in her hand. Mom, I've been thinking, since you're going to be living here long term, we should probably set up some ground rules. Like, you'll be responsible for all the cooking and cleaning, and we'll need you to contribute $1,500 a month for your room and board. $1,500 a month, I said. To live in a guest room and work as your maid. It's not like that. What's it like, then? She set her phone down hard. You know what, Mom? I'm tired of your attitude. We've been nothing but generous, and you've been nothing but suspicious and ungrateful. After today, things are going to change. You're going to sell that house. You're going to contribute properly, or you're going to leave. Those are your options. I see, I said. At 11:30, Derek's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face changed. What do you mean? He listened more. Fine, yes, we'll be there. He hung up and turned to Melissa. That was the realtor. He says he can't make noon. He can do 3 p.m. instead at the house. I felt a small smile tug at my lips but suppressed it. 3 p.m. works for me. And Melissa looked at me suspiciously. Why are you being so agreeable suddenly? I just want this to be over. I said, which was true. The hours between noon and 3 p.m. felt endless. Melissa paced the house. Derek kept checking his phone. I sat in the living room reading a book, calm on the surface while my heart hammered underneath. At 2:30, Melissa came down the stairs with a small suitcase. I packed some of your things, Mom, for when you go back to your house after the meeting, just to make things easier. How thoughtful, I said. At 2:45, Derek said, we should go. We don't want to be late. I nodded and stood. We all went out to the driveway. Derek and Melissa got into their car, a BMW they were probably 3 payments behind on. I got into mine. The drive to my house took exactly 12 minutes. As we pulled onto Maple Street, I felt emotion rise in my throat. My house, my beautiful, worn, comfortable, memory-filled house. The house where I'd been married, where I'd brought my baby home, where Robert and I had built a life. They'd wanted to take this from me. We parked in the driveway. It was 2:58. Melissa and Derek got out, both looking around, probably mentally calculating property values. I realized with disgust. Nice neighborhood, Derek said. This should sell fast. We walked to the front door. I pulled out my keys, but before I could unlock it, a car pulled up to the curb. A man in a suit got out, carrying a briefcase. That must be the realtor. And Melissa said, her voice eager. But as the man approached, I recognized him. It wasn't a realtor. It was Martin Henderson, my attorney. Melissa's smile faltered. Who's this? Martin Henderson. He said, extending his hand. I'm Mrs. Emily Walker's attorney. Attorney? Derek's voice rose. Why do you need an attorney at a realtor meeting? There's no realtor meeting, I said calmly. I canceled it. Melissa whirled on me. You what? I canceled the appointment. I'm not selling my house. I'm never selling my house. This is my home, and you're not taking it from me. Her face went purple. You tricked us? You made us come all the way here. I did, I said. But that's not why I asked you to come. Another car pulled up. This one was a rental car, and my sister Helen got out, along with 2 people I didn't recognize. Who are all these people? Melissa's voice was getting shrill now. Witnesses, I said. I unlocked my front door and pushed it open. Shall we go inside? Inside my house, I felt strength flood through me. This was my territory, my space. They were visitors here, unwelcome ones. Martin set his briefcase on the dining room table and pulled out a folder. Helen and her 2 companions, a notary and a court recorder she'd brought, stood near the wall. What is this? Derek demanded. What's going on? This, I said, is me taking back my life. And Martin opened the folder. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, I'm here today in my capacity as Mrs. Walker's attorney to address several matters. First, the matter of the forged checks. Melissa went white. I don't know what you're talking about. 3 checks. Martin continued calmly, totaling $4,700, forged using Mrs. Walker's checking account, made out to your landlord. We have copies of the checks, copies of the bank records, and photographic evidence that Mrs. Walker's checkbook was taken from her possession while she was staying in your home. That's insane," and Melissa stammered. "Mom, you're confused. You probably wrote those checks and forgot." "I'm not confused," I said. "I photographed your planning notebook, Melissa, the one where you detailed how you were going to manipulate me into selling my house so you could pay your debts, the one where you wrote that if I resisted, you'd make life uncomfortable until I complied or left." The room went silent. Melissa looked like she might be sick. "That notebook is private," she whispered. "That notebook is evidence of elder financial abuse," Martin said. "Which is a felony in this state. Mrs. Walker could press charges. She could have you both arrested." "Mom, please," and Melissa's voice broke. "Please, I can explain. You planned this," I said, and my voice was steady, cold. "You planned it for 6 months. You waited until your father was dead, until I was grieving and vulnerable, and then you executed your plan. You pretended to care about me. You pretended to want me close. All of it was lies. All of it was manipulation to get access to my money. We needed help," Melissa cried. "We're drowning in debt. The rent on that house is $4,500 a month, and Derek's job isn't as stable as we thought. And we have credit cards and car payments and instead of asking for help honestly, I interrupted, or making difficult choices to downsize your lifestyle, you decided to steal from your widowed mother." Derek stepped forward. "Now wait a minute. We were going to take care of you as a live-in servant," I said. "You expected me to cook, clean, and pay you $1,500 a month while you stole my house sale money. That's not taking care of someone. That's exploitation." Helen spoke up from where she stood. "You should be ashamed, both of you." Melissa turned on her. "This is none of your business, Aunt Helen. It became my business," Helen said coldly, when Emily called me in tears, telling me how her own daughter was treating her. Martin cleared his throat. "Mrs. Walker, do you want to press charges?" I looked at Melissa, really looked at her. She was terrified now, tears streaming down her face. Part of me, the mother part, wanted to comfort her, but a stronger part of me remembered her cold eyes as she told me I was a burden. "I'm not going to press charges," I said, "on one condition." "Anything?" And Melissa gasped. "Anything, Mom, please." "You're going to repay every penny you stole, $4,700, deposited into my account within 90 days, and you're going to sign a legal document stating that you have no claim to my house, my money, or any of my assets, ever. You will never contact me asking for money. You will never show up at my house uninvited. You will never, ever try to manipulate me again." "We can't pay you back that much in 90 days, Derek protested. "We're barely making rent." "Then you'll have to make some difficult choices," I said. "Sell the BMW, move to a cheaper apartment, get second jobs. I don't care how you do it, but you're going to repay what you stole. And if we don't," and Melissa's voice was small. Martin answered, "Then Mrs. Walker will file criminal charges for forgery and elder abuse. You'll both face felony charges, possible jail time, and criminal records that will destroy your careers." I reached into my purse and pulled out a small notebook, Melissa's notebook, the one I'd removed from her nightstand, and the day before I left their house. I'd replaced it with an identical blank one, gambling that she wouldn't check it before today. "I've kept the original notebook," I said, setting it on the table. "As insurance, Martin has copies of every page along with all the other evidence. If you fail to repay me, if you ever try to manipulate or exploit me again, this goes straight to the police." "You understand," and Melissa was sobbing now. "How could you do this? I'm your daughter. How could I?" I felt anger surge. "How could you? I'm your mother. I gave you everything. I loved you unconditionally, and you repaid me by treating me like a mark to be conned. We were desperate. So was I." My voice cracked. "I was desperate and alone and grieving, and instead of supporting me, you saw an opportunity. You're my only child, Melissa, my only family, and you tried to destroy me." She collapsed into a chair, her head in her hands. Derek stood behind her, looking stunned and angry. Martin pulled out papers. "This is the repayment agreement. It stipulates the amount owed, the timeline, and the consequences for non-compliance. And this." He pulled out another document. Is a legal waiver of any claim to Mrs. Walker's estate or property. I'm not signing that, Derek said. You can't force us. Would you prefer we call the police instead? Helen asked, because I have Detective Morrison's number right here. Derek's jaw clenched. He looked at Melissa, then at the papers. Finally, he grabbed a pen. Give it here. He signed first, his signature angry and harsh. Then Melissa, her hand shaking so badly she could barely write. The notary stepped forward and witnessed the signatures. It was official. You'll receive payment schedules in the mail, Martin said. First payment is due in 30 days. I looked at Melissa, still crying in the chair. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a vast, aching sadness. I think you should leave now, I said quietly. She looked up at me, her face blotchy and red. Mom, please, can't we talk about this? Can't we fix this? Fix this? I shook my head. Melissa, you stole from me. You lied to me. You planned to take everything I had. How do you fix that? I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Maybe you are, but sorry doesn't change what you did. Sorry doesn't give me back the weeks of anxiety and fear and confusion. Sorry doesn't give me back my daughter, the one I thought I had before I realized who you really were. Derek pulled her to her feet. Come on, Mel, let's go. They walked to the door. At the threshold, Melissa turned back. Are you really going to cut me out of your life? I'm your only child. You cut yourself out, I said. When you decided money was more important than your mother. They left. I watched through the window as they got into their car and drove away. When they were gone, I turned to find Helen, Martin, the notary, and the recorder all looking at me with varying expressions of sympathy and admiration. Are you okay? Helen asked softly. No, I said honestly, but I will be. The next 60 days were strange. I spent them reclaiming my house, my life, my sense of self. I painted the bedroom, a soft yellow Robert had always wanted, but we'd never gotten around to. I joined a book club at the local library. I started volunteering at a food bank on Tuesdays. I didn't hear from Melissa or Derek at all, except for a bank notification on day 30, one that a payment of $1,500 had been deposited into my account. First installment. I felt nothing when I saw it, no satisfaction, no vindication, just emptiness. On day 47, I got a call from an unknown number. I debated not answering but finally picked up. Mrs. Walker, a woman's voice. This is Carol from Prestige Rentals. We met, or rather, spoke on the phone several weeks ago. I remember, I said. I wanted to let you know that the tenants at the Riverside Estates property, your daughter and son-in-law, have vacated the premises. They broke their lease and left quite suddenly. I'm calling because they listed you as an emergency contact. I see, I said. Are they asking me to cover their lease, breaking fees? No, actually, they paid everything they owed: rent, fees, cleaning deposit. It was all settled properly. I just wanted to inform you in case you needed to reach them and didn't have a new address. I don't need to reach them, I said, but thank you for letting me know. After I hung up, I sat with that information. They'd moved, probably to somewhere much cheaper, somewhere they could afford while repaying me and digging out of debt. Good, they needed to learn how the real world worked. 2 weeks later, on day 63, I was in the garden when a car pulled up. My heart clenched when I saw it was Melissa's Honda. Not the BMW, they must have sold that. Melissa got out alone. She looked thinner, tired. She walked up the driveway slowly. Hello, Mom, she said. Melissa. I stood up, brushing dirt from my gardening gloves. I came to tell you we've made the second payment. You should see it in your account tomorrow. Thank you. We stood there 5 feet apart, a chasm between us. We moved, she said, to a 2-bedroom apartment across town. Derek got a second job doing weekend construction. I'm working overtime. We're making it work. I'm glad you're being responsible. I said, I'm not here to ask for anything, she said quickly. I just wanted you to know we're keeping our agreement. We'll repay you fully, every penny. All right. She looked down at her feet. Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to know that I am sorry, not just sorry I got caught, sorry for what I did, sorry for how I treated you. Sorry for all of it. I looked at this woman, my daughter, my only child, and tried to find the little girl I'd loved so completely. She was in there somewhere, buried under years of selfishness and entitlement and poor choices. I believe you're sorry, I said. But sorry isn't enough. You didn't just hurt me, Melissa. You tried to destroy me. You took advantage of my grief. You planned to steal my security. Those aren't small things. Those aren't things you just say sorry for and move on. I know. She was crying now. I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be better. Derek and I are in counseling. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to understand how I became someone who could do what I did. That's good, I said. I hope you figure it out. Do you think? She wiped her eyes. Do you think there will ever be a time when we could have a relationship again? Not now. I know not now, but someday. I thought about it honestly. I don't know, Melissa. Right now, I don't trust you. I don't even know if I like you. But maybe, if you really do change, if you really do become a better person, maybe someday we could try to rebuild something. But it would take years, and it would require you to prove through actions that you've changed. She nodded, more tears falling. That's more than I deserve, thank you. She turned to leave, then paused. Mom, I'm glad you fought back. I'm glad you didn't let me get away with it. You were right to do what you did. Then she was gone. It's been 4 months now since that Thursday afternoon confrontation. Melissa has made every payment on time. She sends brief emails on the first of each month. Payment sent, hope you're well. I respond, payment received, thank you. Helen thinks I'm being too harsh. She's trying, Helen says. Maybe you should give her a chance, but I'm not ready, maybe I never will be. Because every time I think about forgiving her, I remember that notebook. I remember the cold calculation. I remember standing in that rental house feeling like a burden, like a fool, like a woman who'd wasted decades of love on someone who didn't value it. I've learned some hard lessons through this experience. I've learned that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. I've learned that even the people you love most can betray you in ways you never imagined. I've learned that being kind doesn't mean being weak, and that sometimes protecting yourself means hurting someone else. But I've also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I'm 60, 2 years old, widowed, alone. All the things that were supposed to make me vulnerable. And I fought back. I protected myself. I refused to be a victim. To anyone listening to this who's in a similar situation, whether it's a child, a spouse, a sibling, or anyone else trying to manipulate or exploit you, I want you to know this. You don't owe anyone your financial security. You don't owe anyone access to your assets. You don't owe anyone the right to abuse your trust. Family is supposed to be built on love and respect. When those things are gone, what's left is just people who share DNA. And that's not enough. That's never enough. Stand up for yourself. Protect what you've worked for. And if that means creating distance from people who hurt you, even people you love, then that's what you do. Because you matter, your security matters, your peace of mind matters. I still love Melissa. I probably always will. She's my daughter. But I also love myself, and after 62 years of putting everyone else first, I've learned that loving yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. My house is still mine. My money is still mine. My life is still mine. And every morning when I wake up in my own bed, in my own room, in the house Robert and I built together, I feel grateful. Not just for the security, but for the strength I found to fight for it. Melissa has one more payment left. When it's made, our financial obligation will be complete. What happens after that, I don't know. Maybe someday we'll rebuild some kind of relationship. Maybe not. Either way, I'll be fine, because I've learned the most important lesson of all. I don't need anyone to complete my life. I just need to live it with dignity, strength, and self-respect, and that I can do. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, if you've experienced something similar, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. We all have stories, we all have battles we've fought, and sometimes just knowing we're not alone makes all the difference. Remember, every story has a lesson, and if you're in the middle of your own difficult chapter, know this: you're stronger than you think. You're worth fighting for, and you deserve a life where you're valued, respected, and loved, truly loved, not used. Take care of yourselves, and never, ever let anyone convince you that standing up for yourself makes you the villain. Until next time, this is Emily, reminding you that your story isn't over until you say it is.